The 12 items quietly disappearing from supermarket shelves in August 2026 aren't luxury products. They're everyday foods found in the kitchens of millions of American families. Behind those empty spaces on the shelves are some eye-opening numbers. The U.S. cattle herd has dropped to just 86.2 million head, the lowest level in 75 years. Florida's orange production has fallen by as much as 95%, and cocoa prices once climbed past the historic 10,000 per ton mark. You walk into the grocery store with a list of essential items for your family, but instead of fully stocked shelves, the first thing you notice is empty spaces and signs that say, "temporarily out of stock." Most people would assume it's just a shipping delay or a temporary shortage, but that's not what's happening at all. What you're seeing is only the first sign of a much bigger shift taking place across the entire food supply chain. Let's take a look at the 12 items that are quietly disappearing from store shelves right now. 12. Chocolate. You slowly walk down the candy aisle at the grocery store, reaching for the same familiar dark chocolate bar you always buy. But the moment you pick it up, the first thing you notice is how unusually light it feels. The bar is thinner, the wrapper suddenly seems oversized, and the price has quietly climbed to a new level. Your first reaction? Probably that the store is taking advantage of the situation and raising prices again. But that's not what's happening. And if you think this is just about a candy bar costing a few more cents, then the truth is, you still haven't seen the bigger picture. Here's the strange part. Global cocoa prices have tripled, yet grocery stores aren't actually running out of chocolate. It all started a few months ago in West Africa. A wave of El Niño heat, followed by drought and crop disease, devastated cocoa farms in Ivory Coast and Ghana, the two countries that supply more than 60% of the world's cocoa. Cocoa futures surged to a historic high, climbing above $10,000 per ton. Candy manufacturers suddenly found themselves facing production costs, unlike anything they had ever seen. At this point, most people would think, then chocolate bars should either cost 3 times as much or disappear from store shelves. But that's not the option the big companies chose either. Instead, they chose something much quieter. The chocolate bar is still sitting there. It's still the same brand. It still comes in the same familiar wrapper. But inside, it's no longer the same chocolate bar you used to buy. Expensive cocoa butter is quietly reduced. To fill the gap, manufacturers add vegetable oils, peanut filling, caramel, or coat it with a thin layer of cream. The thing that's disappearing isn't the chocolate bar itself. It's the amount of cocoa inside it. Store shelves are still full of chocolate, but real chocolate is quietly disappearing without most shoppers ever realizing it. Many people don't notice until the familiar cake they bake every weekend no longer has the same rich, buttery flavor, even though they're still buying the exact same brand. If you want to avoid buying products that have quietly changed, just remember 2 simple things. Read the ingredient list. Look for cocoa butter near the top of the ingredients instead of vegetable oils taking its place. Switch to pure cocoa powder. Buy larger packages of unsweetened cocoa powder for baking or making drinks yourself, so you can keep the original flavor while getting better value. Perhaps the most surprising part isn't that chocolate has become more expensive. It's that the products we buy every day quietly changed long before most of us ever noticed. And if something as simple as a candy bar can change on the inside without anyone realizing it, then the next everyday item in your kitchen is disappearing in a completely different way. 11. Olive oil. You walk down the aisle, ready to grab the same bottle of extra virgin olive oil you always buy. But you stop. Right where it used to be, there's now an empty space. The shelf isn't completely bare. It's just that the $10 to $12 bottle your family always bought has disappeared, replaced by premium bottles priced at over $30. Your first reaction? You probably assume the store stopped carrying the cheaper brands, or that shoppers rushed in and stocked up again. But that's not what's happening. And if you think the problem is simply having to spend more money on a bottle of cooking oil, the story behind it is far more concerning. Because what comes next isn't just about higher prices. It's the arrival of an entirely new risk right in your own kitchen. It all began in the Mediterranean. Prolonged heat waves and severe drought devastated olive groves across Spain and Italy. As production fell to record lows, wholesale olive oil prices on the global market jumped 78%. As costs climbed too quickly, the bottles that had once been affordable for most families quietly disappeared from store shelves. At this point, most people would think, then I'll just bite the bullet, buy the premium bottle for now, or wait until the next shipment arrives. But the story doesn't end there. The empty space left behind by those affordable bottles is now creating an opportunity for something much more dangerous: counterfeit and adulterated olive oil. To meet demand while keeping prices affordable, some distributors have quietly blended olive oil with lower quality sunflower oil or soybean oil, then continued labeling it as extra virgin before putting it on store shelves. The frightening part is that, from the outside, most shoppers have no way of telling the difference between those bottles and genuine extra virgin olive oil. The biggest concern right now isn't the higher price. The thing that's disappearing isn't olive oil itself. It's the opportunity for ordinary families to buy real olive oil at a reasonable price. You may end up paying more, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're bringing home the pure olive oil you thought you were buying. To protect both your family's budget and your family's health during this period, just remember two simple things. Switch to avocado oil. It has a smoke point comparable to olive oil, a more stable domestic supply, and is far less likely to be counterfeited. Be cautious with unusually cheap labels. If you see a bottle labeled extra virgin, selling for a price that's far below the rest of the market, there's a good chance it's been blended with other oils. Perhaps the most troubling part isn't that olive oil costs more. It's that, for the first time, even if you're willing to pay more, you can no longer be certain you're buying the product you once trusted. And if cooking oil is making you question what's inside the bottle, then the next item quietly disappearing from store shelves is beginning to threaten the emergency protein supply that millions of American families rely on. Factor 10. Canned fish. For decades, canned food has been seen as something that would always be there. No matter how bad the economy got or what disaster came along, cans of tuna and sardines quietly stayed on the shelf, serving as the last line of protein for American families. But here's the surprising truth. The product that seemed impossible to run short of is now facing a quiet crisis beneath the ocean's surface. This time, the problem didn't begin with empty grocery shelves or retailers trying to raise prices. It started with a massive shift in nature itself. Unusually warm ocean temperatures have completely disrupted the migration patterns of offshore tuna schools. Countries have been forced to cut fishing quotas by 10% to 15% to protect declining fish stocks. At the same time, rising fuel costs for fishing vessels and higher aluminum can prices have pushed the cost of getting a single can of fish onto store shelves far beyond what the budget market can comfortably absorb. The strange part is that in the middle of this crisis, most shoppers continue rushing to stock up on tuna. The product hit hardest by rising costs because of its long-distance supply chain. Meanwhile, sardines and mackerel, options with shorter supply chains, more stable prices, and even greater nutritional value, are left sitting on the shelf like forgotten gaps no one notices. The thing disappearing isn't just a few inexpensive cans of tuna. What's really disappearing is the sense of security and the illusion that affordable emergency protein will always be there whenever you want to stock up. For the first time, the emergency food supply that ordinary families depend on has become more fragile than ever. To keep your family's preparedness plan strong without spending more than necessary, you only need to make two small changes in how you think. Focus on sardines packed in water. They come from a shorter supply chain, are less affected by long-distance shipping disruptions, and still provide excellent nutritional value. Check the actual net weight. Don't be fooled by the size of the can. Look at the number of grams of actual fish listed on the back, so you're not paying for extra liquid. The product that seemed like the most dependable item in your emergency pantry turns out to be one of the first to crack when the supply chain is disrupted. And if canned food reveals how fragile long-term food storage can be, then the everyday breakfast staple coming up next delivers an immediate blow to your daily meals without giving you the luxury of waiting. 9. EGGs. In today's food economy, most of us have gotten used to thinking that whenever there's a shortage, factories can simply add another shift, run more production lines, and have store shelves fully stocked again within a few days. But if you walk into the grocery store today and find the egg case completely empty, you'll be faced with a very different reality. Eggs are not a product that can simply be mass-produced on demand. This time, the disappearance of affordable eggs isn't the result of farms manipulating prices. It comes down to one natural bottleneck that no technology can overcome: the growth cycle of a living animal. When highly pathogenic avian influenza, HPAI, swept through large poultry farms, millions of laying hens had to be culled within just a few weeks. But unlike a candy factory that can clean up and restart its machines within 24 hours, a poultry farm must go through a strict disinfection process that lasts for months before new chicks can even be brought in. And from the time a chick hatches until it lays its first egg, nature requires us to wait at least 6 months. That's exactly why this disruption continues putting long-lasting pressure on everyday household budgets. The thing disappearing from store shelves isn't just a few cartons of eggs. It's the mistaken belief that the supply of fresh food can bounce back overnight after just one shopping season. You can't increase egg production by pushing a button or adding another work shift, because every single egg depends on the fixed biological cycle of a living hen. To keep your family's breakfast from being held hostage by long-lasting supply shortages, you only need two simple preparations. Freeze eggs the right way. Beat the yolks and whites together, then portion them into ice cube trays before freezing. This method keeps them suitable for cooking and baking for several months. Use powdered eggs for baking. Save packaged powdered eggs for baked goods and commercial-style recipes, leaving your fresh eggs for everyday meals. The egg shortage reminds us that nature sets limits on the food supply chain. And if a single outbreak can leave egg shelves empty for half a year, then the next product disappearing from store shelves takes years to recover, one raw ingredient at a time. 8. Coffee. For years, every time we walked past the coffee aisle at the grocery store, most of us never stopped to wonder whether the world would still have enough coffee beans to sell. Bags of whole bean coffee sat neatly on the shelves. Prices crept up only a little at a time. Everything seemed perfectly normal. But that sense of normalcy created a dangerous illusion that the global coffee supply was still as stable as it had always been. The truth is completely different. For the past 3 years, the world hasn't been stable at all. We've simply been living off coffee inventories that were built up over many years. This crisis didn't begin with one storm or a single failed harvest. It was created by several consecutive years of shortages. Frost and drought sharply reduced Arabica production in Brazil. At the same time, prolonged dry weather continued putting pressure on Robusta growing regions in Vietnam. When the world's two largest coffee-producing countries ran into trouble at the same time, global coffee production was no longer enough to meet worldwide demand. To avoid a price shock too early and keep store shelves looking full, major coffee processors quietly opened their reserve inventories. Shipment after shipment of stored coffee beans was released to make up for poor harvests. For years, that stockpile served as a cushion that hid the crisis from consumers. But no reserve lasts forever. Once the accumulated shortfall exceeded 22 million bags of coffee, that final cushion was finally exhausted. From that point on, the market no longer had enough backup supply to absorb new disruptions. Bags of whole bean coffee began appearing less often on store shelves. Prices started rising more quickly, and consumers gradually found themselves switching to blended products or instant coffee loaded with additives. The thing disappearing isn't just bags of whole bean coffee. What's really disappearing is the period of time the world once had to hide failed harvests. Now that the reserve cushion is gone, every disruption at the farm level shows up almost immediately on store shelves and in every family's grocery bill. To keep enjoying your morning coffee without paying increasingly higher prices, you only need two simple adjustments. Choose vacuum-sealed whole bean coffee. Buy a reasonable amount and grind it only when you need it. It keeps its flavor longer while reducing your reliance on pre-ground blends or instant coffee packed with sugar and artificial flavorings. Try cold brew. This brewing method extracts consistent flavor from the same amount of coffee beans, helping you use your coffee more efficiently without sacrificing the quality of your morning cup. The coffee shortage doesn't tell us that the world ran out of coffee beans overnight. It reveals something much more thought-provoking. A crisis can stay hidden for years, right up until the last reserve finally disappears. And if coffee shows us what happens when the world uses up its savings, then the next product disappearing from store shelves is being pushed aside by an entirely different battle over raw materials. A quiet battle is taking place on dairy farms, but the two sides aren't farmers and grocery chains. It's a fight over raw materials between the kitchen of an ordinary family and massive industrial food companies. And this time, consumers aren't the ones winning. When you walk past the dairy case and notice the familiar blocks of butter disappearing, most people immediately assume there's a shortage of fresh milk or that dairy production has dropped. But the reality is exactly the opposite. Milk production on dairy farms has remained relatively stable. What's really happening comes down to the most valuable ingredient hidden inside every drop of milk: butterfat. As commercial butter prices on the global market climbed to nearly $6,000 per ton, major manufacturers of baked goods, packaged foods, and processed products made their move. They were willing to pay premium prices to buy up entire supplies of raw butterfat directly from dairy processors before it ever reached retail packaging lines. Producers were forced to make a choice: sell their butterfat in bulk to the food manufacturing industry and get paid immediately, or package it into individual sticks of butter for grocery stores. They chose the first option. The thing disappearing from store shelves isn't milk. It's the most valuable part of milk, the butterfat that has quietly been absorbed by the industrial food industry. Ordinary consumers aren't just facing a butter shortage, they're losing a competition for raw ingredients against giant food companies. To maintain the nutritional quality of your family's meals without getting caught in the trap of soaring prices, you only need two simple adjustments. Use ghee. This is concentrated milk fat with a shelf life of up to a year at room temperature, and it's far less affected by short-term supply disruptions. Make your own from whipping cream. Buy fresh whipping cream when it's on sale and churn it at home. It's a practical way to recover pure butterfat at a reasonable cost. The competition for raw ingredients has pushed fresh butter out of reach for many consumers. And if butter is the story of a valuable ingredient being claimed by the food industry at the source, then the basic grain staple coming up next is disappearing for an entirely different reason: distance. For 6, white rice. Imagine millions of tons of freshly harvested rice stacked high in warehouses across Asia, while halfway around the world, Americans are staring at empty shelves where white rice used to be. It sounds like something out of a science fiction movie, but it's the strange reality unfolding in today's food market. The natural reaction when people see their familiar 10-kilogram bag of rice disappear is to assume the world is facing another devastating crop failure or drought. But the data tells the exact opposite story. Global rice production remains at a record high. The real breakdown isn't happening in the rice fields. It's happening inside steel shipping containers crossing the ocean. Ongoing geopolitical conflicts have disrupted major shipping routes, sending ocean container freight rates soaring. Once the cost of shipping a container of rice across the ocean becomes more expensive than the rice inside it, the entire economics of importing rice falls apart. Grocery chains can no longer keep affordable long-grain white rice on store shelves, while still offering the low prices consumers expect. The product disappearing from store shelves isn't all rice. It's specifically inexpensive long-grain white rice, the affordable staple that millions of working families depend on. The world isn't running out of rice. The world simply can no longer move rice to the places that need it at a price people can afford. Distance and shipping costs have turned one of the world's most affordable foods into something unreasonably expensive by the time it reaches grocery store shelves. To make sure your family has a steady supply of starch during long-distance shipping disruptions, you only need 2 practical solutions. Choose domestically grown rice. Switch to short-grain varieties or rice produced in North America to eliminate the risks associated with overseas container shipping costs. Stock up on vacuum-sealed bags. Buy larger packages of dry rice with one-way valve packaging for long-term storage, reducing the risk of temporary shortages at local grocery stores. White rice reveals a harsh reality. No matter how abundant a product is, it becomes practically inaccessible when transportation costs rise beyond what people can afford. And if a simple grain can be held back by the cost of crossing an ocean, then the next ingredient behind hundreds of sauces is running into a very different bottleneck deep in the inland growing regions. 5. Canned tomatoes. When rising costs sweep through the food industry, not everyone gets hit the same way. There's a quiet but ruthless rule in grocery stores. The most affordable products, the ones designed to help large families stretch their budgets, are always the first to disappear. Most of us think of canned tomatoes as such a basic pantry staple that we hardly give them a second thought. But if you walk into a grocery store today looking for that $1.50 can of store-brand diced tomatoes, all you'll find is an empty space. Strangely enough, right beside it, imported pasta sauces selling for $6 to $8 a jar are still fully stocked. The reason isn't that the world has run out of tomatoes. California, along with major growing regions in Spain and Italy, has just gone through a poor harvest caused by extreme weather, driving raw tomato prices up by 154%. Add in the rising cost of steel cans, and grocery chains found themselves facing a difficult business decision. They could no longer sell low-priced store-brand canned tomatoes at a profit. And instead of raising those budget products to premium prices, they chose to discontinue them altogether. The inexpensive cans of tomatoes disappeared from the shelves, leaving the display space to premium brands with profit margins large enough to absorb the higher costs. When production costs rise, the first thing to disappear isn't the food itself. It's the layer of protection that helps ordinary families keep their grocery bills under control. The disappearance of affordable canned tomatoes is proof that budget-friendly choices are being deliberately pushed out of the market. To keep making your favorite homemade sauces without paying premium prices, you only need two practical solutions. Can your own tomatoes at home? Buy fresh tomatoes at the peak of the summer harvest when prices are lowest. Make your own sauce and preserve it in sterilized glass jars to last all year. Switch to tomato paste. Buy small cans or tubes of tomato paste. It's more concentrated, requires less packaging, and gives you far better value. The disappearance of affordable canned tomatoes shows how the market quietly eliminates budget options as costs continue climbing. And if canned tomatoes represent a low-cost choice being pushed aside, then the frozen fruit bags coming up next raise a completely different question about the value of the promises printed on the package. 4. Frozen berries. Take a close look at the bright, juicy raspberries pictured on the front of your bag of frozen fruit. That picture hasn't changed. The product name is still the same. The price on your receipt hasn't gone up by even a single cent. But what you find inside that bag after you tear it open tells a completely different story. This isn't simply lower quality ingredients or another case of shrinkflation. It's a quiet breakdown of what the package actually promises. After late-season frosts devastated raspberry-growing regions in Serbia and Poland, production of IQF, individually quick-frozen. Raspberries fell to record lows, driving wholesale prices up to $5.5 per kilogram. Faced with the risk of losing customers if they raised the price of mixed berries, food packers chose a solution that most shoppers would never notice at first. They changed the blend ratio. The bag still weighs 500 grams, but the percentage of expensive raspberries and blueberries has quietly been reduced to the bare minimum, replaced with lower-grade strawberries and inexpensive diced apples. Consumers are still paying the same price for the same product name, but the actual contents inside the bag have been quietly reshaped. The thing that's been lost isn't the plastic bag or the retail price. It's trust in what the front of the package promises. You're still buying the same product name, but you're no longer getting the fruit blend you expected. To avoid becoming the victim of these quiet ingredient swaps, you only need to make two smart changes. Switch to single-ingredient bags. Buy separate bags of blueberries or strawberries instead of mixed berries, making it much harder for manufacturers to quietly substitute ingredients. Read the percentages on the back. Ignore the attractive pictures on the front. Turn the package over and check the ingredient list to see the order in which the fruits are listed. Frozen berries prove that the packaging can stay exactly the same while the value inside quietly changes. And if a bag of fruit can be reworked without most people noticing, then the iconic breakfast drink coming up next is witnessing the collapse of an agricultural industry that has existed for centuries. Chapter 3. Orange juice. An industry can use its reserves to hide a crisis for years, but it can't delay the truth forever once nature decides to stop cooperating. Walk through the beverage aisle and you'll notice an obvious change. The cartons of 100% pure orange juice that once filled the shelves have nearly disappeared, replaced by juice blends mixed with apple or grape juice. The natural assumption is that brands are simply expanding their product lineup, but the reality is far harsher. The orange juice industry has officially run out of the raw material it needed to keep up the illusion. Citrus greening disease has wiped out 95% of Florida's orange production, while spreading across nearly half of Brazil's citrus-growing acreage. For nearly a decade, major companies quietly worked through every last drop of frozen orange juice concentrate stored in strategic reserves to make up for the shortages. Now, those reserves have officially reached zero. The final safety net has disappeared, forcing the entire industry to reveal the crisis it had managed to hide for so long. An industry can survive on reserves for years, but it cannot replace orchards that no longer exist. Pure orange juice is disappearing because the lifeline built up over years has finally run dry. To keep your family supplied with vitamin C without falling into the pricing trap of blended juice products, you can switch to domestically available fresh fruits, such as grapefruit or strawberries. Options that don't depend on the concentrated orange juice supply chain. At the same time, stay alert to labels that say orange blend by checking the actual percentage of orange juice listed on the package, so you don't end up paying premium prices for a product that's mostly apple juice or added sugar. The disappearance of pure orange juice shows us that even strategic reserves have limits when nature delivers a prolonged disaster. And if orange juice is the story of reserves finally running dry, then the fresh food coming up next reveals an even harsher reality. When everyone rushes toward the cheapest option, it quickly becomes the hardest one to find. Chapter 2. Ground beef. A strange pattern is unfolding at the fresh meat counter. Premium cuts like steak are still sitting on the shelves, while the trays of affordable ground beef are completely wiped out, with prices reaching a record $9.55 per pound. Many people assume ranchers have stopped producing beef, but the real reason is a massive shift in consumer behavior. After years of drought-weakened grazing land, the U.S. cattle herd fell to 86.2 million head, the lowest level in 75 years. As supply tightened, premium cuts climbed beyond what most households could afford. Faced with that reality, millions of shoppers abandoned steak and rushed toward ground beef as their last affordable option. That mass migration created a severe imbalance between supply and demand, turning what used to be the cheapest cut into the first item to disappear from store shelves. When everyone turns to the most affordable choice to save money, that choice quickly becomes the hardest one to find and the most expensive. Ground beef isn't disappearing because people have stopped eating beef. It's disappearing because it has become the last budget refuge for everyone. To protect your grocery budget from rising prices, try blending ground beef with ground pork or beans when making burgers or meat sauces. You'll keep the rich flavor while cutting your costs nearly in half. You can also watch for markdowns on larger cuts of beef that are close to their sell-by date and grind them yourself, which often costs much less than buying prepackaged ground beef. Ground beef shows just how fragile even the products we think of as budget-safe havens can become. And if adults can still tighten their belts when food prices rise, then the product at number one allows no room for compromise, because it's about the survival of the youngest members of the family. Number 1. Infant formula. Some products disappear and do little more than inconvenience us or add a few extra dollars to the grocery bill. But when the shelves holding infant formula are empty, that's when a true survival crisis reaches families one by one. Unlike ordinary food products, the infant formula market is controlled by a tightly concentrated industry. The nation's supply depends on just 3 or 4 major manufacturers operating under strict FDA oversight. If even one production facility runs into a problem or temporarily shuts down its inspection process, the nationwide supply can be disrupted immediately, with no backup cushion in place. What makes this disruption so frightening is that these products often cannot be substituted. A baby with a cow's milk protein allergy or lactose intolerance can't simply switch to another standard formula. The moment a specialized formula disappears, parents are pushed into panic, because a baby's health leaves no room for trial and error or risky delays. A highly concentrated supply chain means that a disruption at one fragile link can instantly become a survival crisis for the people who are most vulnerable. It's a harsh reminder of how complete dependence on a centralized production system can leave families with almost no control over their situation. To protect your child during sudden supply disruptions, parents should stay prepared by working with their pediatrician to identify 2 or 3 formula brands that meet the same medical requirements and can be used as alternatives if needed. It's also wise to build relationships with children's hospitals, pediatric clinics, or large pharmacies, where supply may be more reliable than relying entirely on retail grocery stores. And under no circumstances should you dilute infant formula or try to make homemade formula yourself. The disappearance of the 12 items on this list isn't a series of isolated events. Together, they reflect a reality that today's food supply chain is under greater pressure from extreme weather, disease, rising production costs, and changing consumer behavior. The key isn't to panic and start stockpiling. It's to understand what's happening so you can shop more proactively, more flexibly, and more wisely. A few small changes today could help your family avoid much bigger challenges as the market continues to shift. What about you? Out of these 12 items, which one has become more expensive or harder to find where you live?